To kick off, as I said, delighted that you're all here to learn about what is the third Creative Climate Action Fund. Just to give you a sense of the agenda for this morning, if you could move to the next slide, Adele, that would be great. So I'm just going to give you a little brief introduction. My colleague Adele, who's been spearheading the fund, will go through it in quite some detail. We'll be joined by our colleague Anya from the Shared Island Unit in the Department of the Taoiseach to talk about the €1 million being given through the Shared Island Unit for All Island projects. And then my colleague Anne-Marie will talk you through the application process. Plenty of time for Q&A, no question too basic. And as the presentation progresses, we will certainly be attempting to answer in the chat any questions that you have. I wanted to say that there's a networking session that's going to be held in person, a real live in-person meeting, next Friday the 6th in Dublin, and we'll be putting a link to that in the chat. We won't be repeating what you hear today. Instead, next Friday is a chance to network with potential partners, because we are aware there are some people missing part of the jigsaw. You may be, for example, an artist in search of a community group, or you might be a community group in search of a particular climate and biodiversity expert. So if you're on the call today and you feel you'd like to enlarge the team, the purpose of next Friday is matchmaking with potential partners, and also a chance to hear from the horse's mouth from previous projects about how things have worked, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I suppose just a little bit about us. Who's organising the grant call? Well, the grant call is being organised by the Creative Ireland programme. We're what's known as an all-of-government programme. So we're based in the Department of Culture with the big, hairy ambition that we're going to inspire and transform people, places and communities through creativity. Part of that means thinking about the role that culture and creativity plays across government policy, and specifically in relation to this fund, the power of culture and creativity when it comes to motivating and promoting communities to take specific climate action. So that's what we're about here today, and I'll hand over to Adele. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Tanya. Welcome to you all, and thanks so much for so many of you giving up your lunchtime to come along today. So with regard to the Creative Climate Action Fund, sorry, there we go. Okay. So what we would like to talk about is, I suppose, that, you know, we know that the climate commitments for Ireland are, you know, ambitious and urgent, but there's a sense that these ambitions may be quite abstract and they're framed in a very technical manner and scientific terms that can be difficult for people to understand in their daily lives. And we know from experience that every town, county, city around the country has a unique lived experience of climate impacts, and whether that's like coastal erosion, flooding, as lots of us had most in recent weeks, and biodiversity, changing agricultural seasons. These challenges vary from place to place, and the right solutions must be adapted to a local context, local knowledge, and with an understanding of what that community needs. So as this slide says, the climate crisis is a crisis of culture and thus of the imagination. Policy and science can provide the what and the why of climate action, but using creative interventions can build trust as well as translate climate targets into behaviour change. Right now, communities need support in figuring out the how, and this is where creativity plays an important and almost a unique role in this area. There's a quote that I like to use from a Forbes magazine article back in 2023 that says, for this radical transformation of culture towards climate action, there's one resource needed that's thankfully unlimited in society, and that's imagination. That mysterious and powerful attribute that neuroscientists are still baffled by. We can't just mechanize our way out of climate change, we must imagine our way out of it. So, and I really like that puts culture at the center of this climate shift that we need to experience. So climate and sustainability transformation are essentially a massive cultural challenge. Our culture reflects, you know, and it influences the way we interact with the environment. It's reflected in our consumption habits, our ideas about nature and what we value as meaningful, and also what we think about as being possible or impossible. And to provoke this change, we need to think big, think differently, and most importantly, think creatively. It is possible for the cultural and creative sectors to make the intangible tangible, to consider how life could be in a more sustainably focused world. So the Creative Climate Action Fund has shown that using an interdisciplinary approach to problem solving is a strategic element of change. When communities co-create or design solutions with the support, importantly, from those with the expertise in new types of engagement and in the scientific research, they translate national targets into lived, shared, and sustained action. So creativity and the arts can play an irreplaceable role in making climate science accessible and in making climate action meaningful to people across the island of Ireland. Through creative expression, we can translate complex scientific data into relatable stories that resonate with communities, inspiring them to engage and act. This is kind of cultural participation that ignites both urgency and possibility, helping people to envision the future we're striving to build. I have another quote from a data science called Nancy Duarte, and she likes to say, "Oh, the stories data would tell if there were a teller to tell them well." Culture and creativity have the power to capture hearts, stir minds, and spark lasting change. To ensure we move towards a sustainable world, we must embrace the transformative power of arts and creativity in our climate strategy. And remember that imagination is the key to a hopeful future. Okay, so in terms of the previous funds, we have been delivering on the Creative Climate Action Fund since 2021. We have delivered two funds, the 2021-2022 fund and the 2023-25 fund. Across government, 8.5 million has been invested in 57 projects that have had impacts up and down the country, across the island, and indeed on a European and international stage. Oops. I just want to go back. What we have learned is that funding projects harnesses collaboration and creativity and helps us to, you know, really get to the depth of extremely challenging and local and national issues. The creative process has been as or more important than any artwork produced. And I think this is really important for people to understand. This is about creative process. It's about the way in which we move people from wanting to engage with climate action to actually taking that action. So while we welcome the, you know, the artworks that are completed by the end of projects, can I just check if anyone has their, can just check if everyone is on mute. Thanks very much. So the creative process has been as or more important than any artwork produced. We are looking for you to really delve into what is unique within that creative process. While there have been wonderful works of art and creative, you know, interventions produced across these funds, what's actually more important to us is how that creative process has helped communities engage. And that is, again, one of the other things we've learned, that engaging with communities of either place or practice. So we've had multiple projects that are based in a place and are very, very local and speak to the needs of that community. And as I've discussed earlier, that's incredibly important. But also we've had a number of projects that are based with communities of practice. So that can be a group of artists. We've had communities of practice of designers, of architects, of different types of community of practice around a particular type of climate change that's needed. So there's lots and lots of ways you can engage communities. We've even had communities within workplaces that have been utilised through the previous projects. So we are looking for the focus is on that creativity and inspiring change. So what about that practice moves people to action? And it's not arts for art's sake. So what we don't want are applications to produce a great piece of artwork, because that is, you know, as the Department of Culture, Communications and Sport, the Arts Council is our agency, and we want them to have that role in producing art for art's sake. That is their mandate. For this project, what we are looking for is to really show how that creative process can be utilised as a mechanism for change. We have engaged independent research through the Mare Centre in UCC. And, you know, they have researched the first fund and are currently finishing up the research of the second fund. We have published the year one findings of the second fund already on the website. And what across the two current iterations of research we've found, or Mare have found, that almost all participants agree that the creative approaches are more effective than information alone in inspiring and providing impetus for climate action. They've also said that most participants report increased empowerment and intention to take climate action. The arts has always been known as an area that inspires people to build their own sense of agency. And it's incredibly important that as part of this, we ensure that people are given agency to take that action in their own communities. Emotional resonance was a key driver. The projects foster deep connection with nature and social cohesion, create safe spaces for inclusion and constructive dialogue on climate action. What we have found is that we have ensured across the projects that we do have climate experts in every project, that we do have engagement experts, and that we do have the artistic and creative experts within the project. But the thing about the creative and artistic experts is what they can bring to the table is the ability to really evoke an emotional response from the participants, and that's incredibly important. They also can sometimes be the person in the room that can be that trusted advocate for other people, saying, I also don't understand this, so let's get somebody we can talk to about it, and help them really engage with that topic. And finally, the initiative has directly supported Ireland's National Climate Action Plan. So particularly in the areas of citizen engagement and in just transition, what we have found with the creative process that is particularly valuable when engaging with communities that are typically excluded from the climate conversation. And there is some really nice research in the year one plan that will, and findings that will point to that. So anybody who is interested in looking at projects where there is a just transition element or targeting seldom heard groups, you know, we do now have research that points to this particular model of engagement as being really important in engaging in that just transition area. So, sorry, there we go. Okay, so in terms of creativity, we are open to all forms of creativity. So not just traditional arts, but beyond that. So there are many different forms, and we are not prescriptive. We do not want to dictate to you what that creativity should look like, how you should engage with people, or any of those things. You bring to the table what your creativity is and share that with us. So again, you know, anything you think is a creative practice, we will consider that as part of these application processes. The Creative Climate Action Fund is running from, the reason I've said mid-2026 is by the time we have decisions made on this, it will be mid-June of this year to the end of June. So we are running the fund across 36 months, essentially. So mid-2026 to mid-2029. And we want projects that are delivered on the island of Ireland. My colleague Anya will discuss the shared island component later. But we do want the lead partner to be based in Ireland. The projects are in the range of 400,000 to 750,000. We will exclude any application for funding below 400,000. The reason for this is the findings that the research has pointed us to are stating that people need longer periods of time, and they need more partners, and we need to make sure that the projects embed the right expertise to ensure success in delivering the outcomes that they have agreed on. So what are we looking for then? So we're looking for innovative projects of scale and ambition that lead with a strong artistic, cultural, or creative approach to enable climate action in community of place or practice. At its core, this fund is focusing on transforming understanding into specific and tangible climate actions. So what we are looking for is projects that show that they can bring about the following requirements, that we want people to bring about conceptual shifts, a change amongst those involved in their ways of seeing or approaching the issue of climate change. Behavioral or cultural shifts, so new behaviors adopted by individuals or organizations involved or participating in the project. Organizational change. People or organizations introduce new or different policies or practice as a result of the project, and I'll come back to that one in a minute. And enduring connectivity, that the project creates sustainable changes and allows participants and or networks to continue to work together beyond the life of the project. So I think the conceptual shifts and behavioral or cultural shifts are they're self-explanatory. The organizational change, there is a reason we're requiring these projects to be based in an organization of scale. We are interested in seeing what funding at this level over a sustained period of time changes within that organization and within the trickle down organizations and or people they engage with, and most definitely the communities they engage with. So we will be looking for some findings around that. Enduring connectivity is we are looking for you to consider from the outset what the legacy of the project might be. Now, we are fully aware that that might change as time goes on, and that's perfectly fine. But what we are looking for is for people to consider this from the get-go. We don't want to reach the end of 2028, running into 2029, and people are worried about the project not continuing or abandoning communities that have been engaged with. We're looking for you to seek other partners or to continue that journey or find ways of continuing that journey. So we'd like something that points in that direction. As I said, that can change and often does when you engage with communities. And that's something we can discuss at a later stage with regard to Creative Ireland and its willingness to amend and adapt outputs and outcomes depending on what the community you're engaging with are looking for. So we've had a number of examples over the projects of where a project plan might have said that they were going to hold events at this time, but the community that they were engaging with told them that that was entirely impossible because for various reasons, events were happening, like in the farming community, doing something during lambing season is not ideal, and lots of other things besides. So we are looking for that that sense of engagement with that community. So as a result, we understand that those outputs and outcomes can change as time goes on, and we will discuss that at a later stage. Okay, sorry, just moving on. Okay, so the themes we're looking for, and you can see these are quite open, and it may be that your project fits into 2 or 3 of these, and that's fantastic. But we are looking for themes that really sit within the framework of the Climate Action Plan to ensure that we are directing projects that are sitting and supporting Ireland's climate action ambitions. So the project requirements then, as I said, we are seeking applications for grants between 400,000 and 750,000. The projects are going to be 36 months in duration. We're looking for larger and longer projects. So we really do want projects that run to that duration, because the research has shown us that if you stop engaging after a year, then people are left wanting more. So we have purposely increased the length, and we purposely increased the amount to ensure that that means it's successful. We're looking for extensive public engagement. This is first and foremost about engaging, and through that engagement moving people from planning to action, and we really want them to do that. We're looking for projects that are completely new ideas or also potentially scaling up tested ideas. You may have previously had a smaller project and you may previously have had something that tested the waters, and now you've got a proof of concept and you're looking for a platform on which to launch that proof of concept, and this is the ideal location for that. We're looking for broad collaborations and partnerships. So this can be multifaceted. The projects can potentially have multiple strands within them. Obviously, for that amount of money, it's, you know, there's lots of scope within that to have, you know, multiple strands within projects. But we are looking for people to engage with the, you know, the various bodies or people that they may not traditionally engage with. So if you are a local authority, have you engaged with the various, you know, climate organizations or various communities of practice potentially, or place, whatever that looks like. There's lots and lots of options here, and we welcome all partnerships. We want you to be as imaginative as you possibly can around this. But what we're looking for is people who have experience in delivering public engagement projects at scale. Now, that does not have to be everybody within the project team. That can be some people within the project team. But it is important that the managing organization has that experience, because we are looking for people to hit the ground running with these projects. So we also want to ensure that, you know, there is some experience of managing interdisciplinary project teams, because we are looking to bring together, and we'll get to the project team in a second, lots and lots of different professionals who, as we discovered, they may all be saying the same thing, but can often be using very different language. That can even be a starting point to figure out what your team is saying to each other, never mind what the community is saying to you. And very importantly, given that it's a significant amount of public funding, we are looking at organizations that have a track record of financial management. So in that respect, the project team requirements are non-negotiable. We want these people on the team. So we are looking for, you know, artists, creative practitioners, and or cultural creative organizations. And if you note at the bottom, it's not just one artist or creative organization, climate expert that's permitted. You can have more of these, but it's a minimum of one per project team. There are some people who will say that we engage various people as we go along, and that's absolutely brilliant. And as the project evolves, you might find you need more people as you go along. But what we really need to ensure is that the project team, so the core team delivering the project, has these expertise on it. We also then want a climate expert. So that can be, for example, environmental scientists, an ecologist, biodiversity expert. Again, we're not being prescriptive as to exactly who they are, but they need to have expertise in climate. We have found that project management is where projects can succeed or fall. So this is a very important role. We do need to ensure that there is a project manager named, and that they are actively involved from the very beginning of the project to the end of the project. We have discussed with some of the bigger projects in the past where they have sought to have that person also be another role within the team. That's just hasn't seemed to be as successful as you know you would imagine. We do need this person to be a project manager. So again, consider what your role is within a team. An administrator, again, somebody who is going to be looking after the administration side of things. My colleague Anne-Marie will discuss later on, you know, back and forth between our team and what that will require. But it is important to have that person around so that they can support the project manager and the rest of the experts to actually deliver the project. We will be looking for an accountant or services. So the project requirements within the briefing document do require that the lead organization has to produce audited accounts on a yearly basis for this project. So that, you know, that will require an accountant services. And again, we would recommend that you provide that service and that you procure that service or engage that service, whatever that looks like for your organization. What we will often say to, you know, people running projects is that oftentimes people think that, oh, I can do this bit, this is fine. But you know, you wouldn't necessarily ask a solicitor to do the job of an accountant or vice versa. What we're looking for is to ensure that people are being paid to do the job that they're best suited in. So an accountant can come on board, they can be on the team, they don't have to be at events, they can just be delivering the accounts on a consecutive basis. We just need to make sure that that's in place. Again, it can be a service and that you engage with them, but that person is required. We will require an independent evaluator embedded within each project from the get-go. It is incredibly important that that position is there from the very, very beginning. For this fund, what the intention of the Creative Ireland team is to procure an overall service that will coordinate with the evaluators and will support the evaluators in making sure there is some consistency across the reports, that we will have a level of consistency, but also recognizing that every project is unique and different and everyone will evaluate in their own way, but will also support then the department to lift those outcomes up to a higher level, will help us provide an overall report and also then provide policy advice on the future direction beyond the lifetime of this programme. We also need you to have some communications and public engagement expertise on the team. And again, that could be the same person, that could be a different person, it's up to you, but it is important that that expertise is there. Again, some people have found that that can be hard to get. What some projects have found in the past is if the projects themselves come together and find one person that's going to do that job on behalf of a number of projects, that can be helpful. So as Tanya mentioned earlier, we will have the networking event next Friday, and that's an opportunity to have a look at these different roles. So some considerations we'd like you to take account of. I've just discussed the evaluation element. So again, they must be in place since the beginning. An end of project written report is required. What we generally do is we get one report that's for internal use that will include all the financial details that helps us fulfill our obligations under the grant circular to the Controller and Auditor General. But we will also require a second version that doesn't have the accounts and financial details in it, and that report will be publicised on the Creative Ireland website. So just to be aware of that from the very beginning, there is a requirement for a publishable report to be ready at the end. And we do want you to show in the application what your approach will be or might be to evaluating and measuring outcomes. So it is important that you've considered that before the application is submitted. So budget, some things that we've discovered in the past are important to consider are project management, accessibility and support, that they support the participants' needs. We do need, we need someone who's available. We need them to make sure that they can support the delivery of the project. So yeah, and sorry, apologies to put them together. Accessibility for the support and support for participants' needs. Again, depending on your community, that can be different for everybody, but we would also like you to ensure that you consider that every voice is heard, no matter what way they like to communicate, and to ensure that that's reflected in the evaluation process then as well. Consider the remuneration for creatives. Again, we're looking for everyone on the project to be treated with equity, so that there is, creatives are remunerated in the same way that an accountant might be. That we ensure that we do include evaluation and documentation. We want you to consider showcases and events, what those costs might be, travel costs, materials. If you are considering a shared island project, just to note that there can be fluctuations, and we do understand that, but that consider that from the from the get-go. So corporate and compliance, we have, as we did in the last fund, on the submit.com page, published a version of the service level agreement that the Creative Ireland use for grantees. That is what you will be signing. So please do ensure that that's been read. If you are If you are within an organization that it might be a particular area of the organization, but it's somebody else that's actually going to be signing it, can you ensure that they have reviewed it as well? Because we won't be negotiating on the content of the legal side of the service level agreement. There's areas in the outputs and outcomes that can be adjusted, but this is what the agreement is. We want people to make sure that they fully understood the requirements under the grant circular. So Circular 13/2014, which is for the management and accountability for grants from the Exchequer funds. So that is, again, what you are signing under the service level agreement, is that you agree to adhere to the conditions under that circular. So very important that you've considered the contents of it. Also consider elements like GDPR and anything else that might need to be, covered depending on your community of place or practice. In terms of engagement, this is something, again, my colleague Anne-Marie can discuss a little bit later, but our team very much engage on a very continual basis with the projects. We will provide capacity building and training events. We have in the briefing document, we've noted that there will be a residential programme in September of this year. We will be looking for at least 2 to 3 people per project team being on that. And again, that is a condition of the funding. So it is important that you understand that that is a requirement. And while the team here will cover the full costs of the training itself and the training and accommodation or anything of those costs around the venue, the cost of attendance, so daily rates or any of those elements, need to be covered through the project fund. So that's important that you consider that as part of your budget then as well. Okay, we are looking to ensure that this program has maximal impact. We will be requesting briefing material. We are looking to ensure that our government colleagues are fully appraised of these projects and the value of them to, the national aim of climate reduction and climate mitigation and adaptation. So we do need you to understand that that will be different to other funds. So if you've engaged with us before, you know how we like to engage, but if you haven't and you're new to this, it is not just a case of signing the SLA and then we see a report in 3.5 years time after it. It is very much a kind of ongoing engagement. We'll be looking for materials for press releases. We would be looking for you to keep us appraised of all the events you're running. We often have requests from, ministerial colleagues for attendance at these events. So we need to know about them well in advance. And this is our way of helping you. You will get more coverage if we know about it and we can support that side of the engagement. We will be requiring budget updates. There is a requirement to do a yearly accounting of what's been spent and what hasn't been spent, so that's important to understand that will come on a yearly basis. But the team will be engaging with you on a fairly regular basis on that basis. Okay, so in terms of ineligible costs, okay, so costs not directly related to the project. So we're not looking to retrofit buildings or build a new building or do any of those sort of things. This is an engagement project. We understand that equipment and things like that are sometimes needed, but it is important that we're not considering capital expenditure. So where it's a kind of a fixed in place thing, the art piece or whatever that might look like, that's different. But where it's capital expenditure and changes to a building or something like that, we're not considering those. We are not going to cover retrospective costs, so expenditure that's taken place prior to the project approval date. So if you've engaged with people ahead of the approval date of the project, we can't cover those costs. So as I mentioned, capital requests for building improvements to workspaces or venues, we can't cover. Applications relating to television series, TV programs, or standalone advertising campaigns. So while some of these elements can be outputs, they can't be the only output. So it can't be the one thing, because again, the focus of this is on that engagement with community of place or practice. So if the engagement with that community ends up in developing something that ends up being, you know, a television series, a TV program, or an advertising campaign, that's different. But these things themselves can't be pre-decided. It's also worth noting that if you are looking at that, it is not just a case of you engage with the people and then you run away and make your TV program. It does have to be an engaged process. We are not looking for school-related projects or projects that engage exclusively with children. So there is a lot of funding available for school-related projects and projects that engage exclusively with children. We're not excluding children from the conversation, but they can be included as part of the community in general. We just do not want school-related projects. Additional overheads that exceed 15% of the total budget, and particularly for university potential applicants, this is something to consider, because I know certain universities like to add on additional percentage overheads. We will not be accepting anything over 15%. This is not a standard research grant call. It's a grant call that's dealing with engagement and behavior change and moving people kind of in a certain direction. So it is quite different to what you might consider a standard research budget. So we will not accept anything that exceeds 15%. So the criteria are quite extensively explained this time around, and we are, delivering on marks to a maximum of 200. So we were looking at elements like creativity, climate relevance, community engagement, a demonstration of change, what the project team is made up of, the track record of that team, what the evaluation plan is, and the feasibility and value for money of that plan. And importantly on that one, we really, obviously this is a climate fund. It is very important that the environmental impacts of the project have been considered as well. So this page is available to you within the project briefing, and important that you consider all of those elements. Again, if you forget an element of it, that can result in you not getting any mark for that question or that criterion. So it's really important that when you review your application, that this is considered. Okay. So now I'd like my colleague Anya Early from the Shared Island team over the Department of Taoiseach. She's going to talk to you about the Shared Island initiative and how it links with the Creative Climate Action Fund. It's Anya there.
Thanks so much, Del. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Brilliant. Yeah, super. As Del said, my name is Anya and I'm from the Shared Island unit in the Department of the Taoiseach, and we're delighted to be partnering with Creative Ireland. As Adele mentioned, $1 million from the Creative Climate Action Fund is being supported by the Government Shared Island Fund for cross-border and all-island projects. I'm very conscious of time. I know there's probably lots of questions, and also Anne has all the good information on applying. So I might just fly very quickly through these slides and just speak to one or two of them very briefly. I'm not sure now if you can move them on there, but yeah, brilliant. So just briefly to say the purpose of the Shared Island Initiative, it was established in 2020 by Taoiseach Micheál Martin, and at its heart, it's about increasing understanding between the different communities and traditions on the island, finding places where it makes sense to work together, climate action being such an obvious one, and working to deepen connections and cooperation at every level across the island. And this is all done through the remit of and values of the Good Friday Agreement. Moving on to the next slide, as I mentioned, it's a whole of government initiative similar to Creative Ireland, and our work is delivered through 3 key pillars. And if you want to keep going, Adele, the one I'm just going to speak briefly to is the building a shared island. That's essentially about increasing all island and cross-border investment cooperation with support from the Shared Island Fund, which is a total commitment of €2 billion, and doing that to address strategic challenges that are facing the island as a whole. So there's now, the Shared Island Fund is supporting projects that meet Shared Island objectives in the Programme for Government and National Development Plan. If you want to keep going to the next slide, Adele. There's some 35 projects already underway now at this stage across a wide range of areas, and they're all part of the government's commitment to build a more connected, prosperous and sustainable future for all communities on the island. So the slide here just lists some of the projects that are already underway now in the climate action space. So just to give you a flavor, you'll see there they include everything from peatlands restoration to biosecurity initiatives to community-led nature restoration. There's a project there that's installing EV charging points at sports clubs across the island, so creating easy access for the community to fast EV charging, and all the way up then to our large live economy demonstrators, research co-centres that are examining new and innovative ways to address the climate challenges that are facing the community both north and south of the island. So that's just a flavour, I suppose, but it gives you a great sense that there's already a huge amount of cross-border and all-island collaboration happening in the climate space. And under the previous Creative Climate Action Fund, we had shared island projects engaging with really diverse groups from neurodivergent communities and coastal communities to even boards of directors. So hopefully there's some food for thought for you there, if you're thinking about pursuing a shared island project under this grant call. I won't keep you any longer, but if you want more information on any of those projects, on our website, which is gov.ie/shared island. And just say thanks to Creative Ireland for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anya. And just to ensure everyone is fully aware, our colleagues from the Department of Climate, Energy and the Environment couldn't make it today, but they are also co-funding the fund. So this really does speak to and that funding comes through the Climate Action Fund. So it is very much speaking to the Climate Action Plan that is an all of government plan. So my colleague Anne-Marie is now going to take charge to explain the nuts and bolts of how to apply for this fund. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Adele, and thanks to everyone for staying with us. We're very conscious of the time and that it's other people's lunch break. So I'll quickly run through this and then hopefully we'll have more time for Q&A. I see that the chat box is very busy. So just noting the key dates, these are all outlined in the briefing document, but I suppose the most important one for anyone interested would be the 6th of March. We'll be kicking off at about 9:30 in the morning at the Radisson Hotel in Dublin 2. So you can register for that on our website at the link provided. If you go to our grant calls page document, you'll see it there, or on our website, sorry, you just scroll down and there's a registration form. We have a clarification period as well for anyone with questions about their application. That runs up until Thursday the 2nd of April. So please email us and use that subject line just so it reaches the right people. Then the closing date is the 15th of April at 3 p.m. So after that, we will not be accepting any applications. Applications have to be made on submit.com. So you might see there's a PDF version of the application available. We don't accept any written applications or emailed applications or postal applications. It has to be done online. And then the hope is that we'll spend all of April evaluating the applications and we'll have a short list for you by mid to end of May. And we'll have to interview people at that stage as well. So you will hear from us and then we will notify you by the end of June whether you're successful or unsuccessful. There's other dates available on the document that will be relevant for those of you who are successful. So just keep those in mind as well. We have information in there if you are successful that you'll have to go to training and development days. They will be approximately 3 to 4 days long. So just keep that in mind when you're applying as well, but it's more for afterwards if you are successful. They'll typically take place in September. I think the next slide, Adele, will have the last bit of information. Just to read everything before you apply and give yourself plenty of time. There is a lot of information in there. So the most important document is the briefing document. I will be updating the FAQ document as well. So if anyone emails in, we'll be taking the questions that you've put in the chat box today and we'll be putting those up there as well with answers to like the typical queries we're getting. So keep an eye on that. If anyone has any questions at all, just contact us. The submit.com form is up there. It has all of these relevant documents on that page as well as our grant call page on our website.